Are you looking for new books to read? Do you like finding a new special author? Are you tired of the same old books from the same old authors? Well then, welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where you can hear from fantastic new authors. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have worked hard to write great new books. Hear about their book and why you should check it out. So sit back and listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
No, and I'm sorry as well. My email has been, it's a long story. I won't get into it, but a number of things are happening with my social media and email and website and stuff. And yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're on.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Is this video as well as audio or just audio?
Yes, it's both. What I usually do is the audio for the podcast, and then I do video up on YouTube. It's the same. I don't change anything on either of them. There have been a few authors I can't do video, so I just turn the audio podcast into a video and put it up too.
Nope, that's good. I was hoping to get my logo as a background, but I'm not sure how to do that, so we'll just go with this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But if you send it to me, I might be able to put it on the thing when I do the video.
I can do that as well. I mean, when I go through Zoom, I have the logo downloaded as my backdrop, but this is fine. This is great. Right. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I am excited because I heard you on. Here, we'll just get started because we'll end up talking about everything, and then we'll go, oh, wait, we should do the actual podcast. So officially starting, Mickey, welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths today. And this is going to be an interesting interview. So I'm glad you're able to be on. Thank you for being on.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for your support the last 2 years, bringing all of my authors on. And thank you for bringing me on today. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, so am I. And so for everybody listening and you, the podcast goal and reason I started it was to highlight new authors. I was on a bunch of Facebook groups, and I kept seeing authors post, hey, I just made 100,000 in the first 2 months of the year. And hey, I just published my 57th book. And I'm sitting there working on my first book going, man, I can't even relate to that. How do any of their advice doesn't help me? I'm not at their level. And I realized that what's more inspiring to me is to hear another dad that wrote a book and gets it up, and it's his only first book. It took him 2 years, and I figured, hey, there's a lot of authors out there that don't get asked to be on interviews, don't get on the panels because they only have one book and they spent 3 years working on it, and it can be disheartening. So Discovered Wordsmiths was born, focusing on new authors and interviewing them. So because of that, you and I have been in touch a little bit. You represent multiple authors that I've interviewed and put on the podcast through your publicity company. So this is not a author interview. It's a service for authors interview, completely different for me. So, so from there, Mickey, tell us a little bit about you and your company and what you do for authors.
Yeah, we've been in the business since March of 2016, and what we do for authors essentially is focusing more so on traditional media veins, reader-focused blog bookings, book signings, radio, TV, print interviews, newspapers, magazines, getting book reviews with a number of different initiatives, leveraging bloggers. And the whole process behind it is allowing the authors to work on their own social media tabs, such as TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, what have you, but then getting an opportunity with the services that I encompass to complement what they're already doing, only from a traditional media sense. And really, when we started, our focus was more so on the indie author in kind. We built our business leveraging indie authors. Now that's changed a bit. We have a combination of both indie authors and traditionally published authors. We actually have 2 New York Times bestsellers we represent. We have 6 USA Today bestsellers we represent, and multiple international bestsellers, all of which are indie. So, and it's been a journey over the last 5 years, but really our main focus, and I know it's a long-winded answer, but really our main focus is building out authors and not taking a bunch of money from them to do it. And it's been very, very successful.
And it sounds like it. I heard you on another podcast. Forgive me, I don't remember where.
Okay.
And I know we had already been in talks. So I was like, oh, I like his outlook on the business, his why he started it and what he wants to do with it. And I was excited because a lot of authors here, don't get a publicist. They don't help. They don't do anything. I spent thousands of dollars and they had me get on 2 blogs that didn't make any sales. So it's got a bad rap. What have you been doing for indie authors to help overcome that and actually be of benefit to them?
Yeah, and I mean, thank you for that question, because the publicists that you're talking about, and I'm not going to name names because I don't know all of them, and I mean, there's an industry standard as well, but I've not ever been in business to take advantage of authors and just get money. The process with us is, if I don't book the author anything, and this is based on my pricing structure, we don't charge them anything. So really, it's a results-based focus that we do. And to answer the second part of that question, what are we doing that's maybe different? I'm of the belief that everything is built on building blocks. And what I mean by that is I tend to leverage smaller media opportunities, whether they be smaller viewed podcasts, smaller bloggers who don't have as big a reach, things like that. And as we're building up every individual's media resume, which is essentially what we're doing, we will leverage going from a smaller opportunity to a medium opportunity, and then ultimately a larger opportunity. Now, with that takes time. So any author who says they want to work with Creative Edge for 3 months and then call it a day, I don't sign those individuals, because I'm of the belief that we're in the relationship business. We focus on relationships within media, but we also focus on relationships within our own client base. And so all of the things that we're working on, and I've seen this happen multiple times, takes time to build up. And even those authors who have substantial name branding, we still do this same process. And majority of them get it. Long answer, but yeah.
And I like that, because the saying going around is, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And the people that get that understand you can't put one book out and suddenly you're J.K. Rowling. There's only a few of those every now and then.
It's a shot in the dark sometimes. I mean, there's Andy Weir at The Martian and things like that, but it doesn't happen very, very often.
You can still have a great career and make money selling books without being the overnight success that makes one book in your household name. So
exactly.
When you get a new author, let's say I come to you and say, okay, Mickey, I've got one book, I've got plans for more. What would you say to me that we would do? What would be the services you could offer, and what could I expect over 3 months, 6 months, a year?
So every new author that reaches out to me or I have a conversation with, we typically do a free 1-hour consultation. And that consultation is designed to determine whether or not it's a direct fit between me and that author. But more importantly, are they going to be a fit within the 80 plus team that I currently represent? Because what one individual does directly affects everybody else, especially from a media standpoint. So for example, if I have an author who comes on your show and puts off a really, really bad interview and leaves a bad taste in your mouth, what's the chances you're going to get I'm going to be able to get a second client onto your show? It's going to be minimal, right? So I want to find out, and I want to determine whether anyone I sign is a direct fit for my team first and foremost. Now, once that's determined, we start having conversations within that hour scope. and I find out what they are looking to do with their book, whether it's something I can even leverage, whether it's something that I can target. I always say that my process is not focusing on that one book, but more so focusing on that author, because they're going to put out more books over the long term. And publicity and promotion shouldn't be about promoting that one book. They should be promoting what that writer of that book is, so that when readers associate books, they know that it's always going to be a good valued product, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So from an interview standpoint, we have about 40 connections worldwide that we use on a constant daily, monthly, yearly basis. Those are connections that we've leveraged over the 4 or 5 years. And so I leverage those to help build up those resumes, those media resumes. And then everything else, we send out press releases, we get them posted, we start our process, and it starts the book chain, I guess.
Okay. So what would be some of the first things as a new author that I could expect? Would it be interviews on podcasts, or writing articles for a blog, or some mixture? Does it depend on the author? What would be the first steps?
It depends on the author. It depends on the genre. It depends on how confident they are in front of a camera or a mic. If I feel that they're not confident in either of those areas, for the first month, I'm going to focus on writing with blogs, blog interviews, guest posts, things like that, to get their word out. And then hopefully within a month to 2 months, they are ready for radio or podcasts or visual or TV. Now, some who are seasoned, who can speak well, and who I think will put on a good interview process, we start right away. We get press release posts out with every brand new release. We have about 6 or 7 different bloggers, a couple of magazines that post all of our press releases, genre focus. So we start that. And then we start attacking and leveraging our media podcasts and TV and print and everything else. So there's definitely a cycle to it. And it's been successful over the last 5 years.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And you said you've got some, besides new indie authors, you've got some bestsellers, which I assume are more trad pub. So what do you do different if it's an indie author that's, somebody from home, as opposed to somebody that is published with Simon & Schuster or whatever?
It's a good question. There are some things that I do differently in terms of targeting, in terms of the leveraging the opportunities, but within that as well, these same authors will do some of the same things that the indie authors also do. With the press release posts, I get them all posted. There's a TV station in the town where I live, Lloydminster, that does 5 to 6 interviews a month. So we're leveraging those opportunities. And then we have multiple podcasts that we set up who interview our clients either once a month, in some cases once every week. And we go from there on that. And then it's just a matter of getting the word out other ways. So,
okay. And so trad publishing, I've heard a lot, and I haven't been traditionally published, that they're still doing a lot of the marketing themselves. It's not like back in the good old days that they're doing a lot of it themselves. So would you say, even though they're trad published, a service like yours would help anybody trad published?
Yeah, I've got a number of authors who are traditionally published, and what we've found within that is the opportunities that I'm leveraging actually complements what the in-house publicists are doing at Simon & Schuster and Penguin and Hachette and all of these things. The other thing to keep in reminder, Stephen, is that the majority of the publicity houses within those traditional published firms will only publish the book for 3 to 4 months. That's their window for opportunity, and then they stop, because they have to go on to the next opportunity that those in-house people are working on. So within us, we don't stop after 3-4 months. We're still ongoing promoting new releases and the backlist a year and a half, whatever. I represent New York Times bestseller Tosca Lee, And her newest duology, The Line Between In a Single Light, which is essentially a pandemic duology, ironically, we've been promoting that series for a good year and a half, even after Simon & Schuster, which is where it's published, stopped their efforts. And so we're still getting stuff now. We're still getting her library bookings for these same books and book signings and magazine outlets and things like that. And it's been a year and a half. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what should an author do? Let me rephrase that. Would you advise an author to come to you before their book is published and you start the relationship and working on things before it's published, and how soon before, or should they wait till it's already published and then talk with you about a publicist?
I think it's a combination of things. If they're an indie author and they have some flexibility on the release time for what they're looking for, they can reach out to me before the book is published with the premise that we're going to develop a plan for the book when it comes out. I typically like to have my arcs 3 months in advance of publishing date, just so I can get it out to all the major book reviewers and publishers and things like that. That doesn't always happen, but that's, in a perfect world, that's what my goal is. But it's never a bad thing to ever talk with a publicist at any time if the word publicist doesn't leave a bad taste in the author's mouths, because I know there's that stigma out there. So,
right.
Yeah.
And that's, why when I heard you talking, and I know I had already talked to several of the authors you represent, and then I heard you on the interview, I was like, yeah, I could trust this guy with everything you said.
Thanks.
And you didn't pay me to say that. That was
I tried. You wouldn't take the money. So
yeah,
hey.
I'll have to come up and visit you, and I think I owe somebody a stiff drink anyway. Was it Jackie McDonald, I think? Yeah. We got halfway through the interview and realized we weren't recording. We had to start over. I was like, oh man.
Oh no. Okay.
But she took it really well.
Perfect.
So what right now, if there's probably a bunch of authors listening, I try and focus on readers, so the authors are getting readers, but I know a lot of authors listen, which is why I do 2 parts to most interviews. What would you tell these authors that they should maybe do or look at doing or start doing now before they even come to you, or things that you see as mistakes that authors do that maybe they should think about fixing?
That's a great question as well, and I think the answer is multi-layered. So if it gets long, I apologize.
No, that's great.
I think that there's a couple of schemes when it comes to this. Authors need to be very, very grounded in terms of what the expectations are. That's the first and foremost thing I think is important. Not every book is going to become a national bestseller, whether it be an indie or a traditional book. It's just not going to. And authors need to understand that small opportunities will equal out to larger scale opportunities over the long haul. The way to be successful doing that is put out a good product. Get it professionally edited. Get a beta reader team. Invest some money in the book cover. Make the book cover vibrant. Make it visibly appealing. And then understand, and then have the story out there as well. Like, don't second guess your market. Write for you is what I tell my clients this all the time. Don't try to second guess what the readers are going to buy. Write for you. Write what you want to put down on paper with your ideas and put it out there and not second guess it, because there's always going to be a reader for a book. And if it's your fan base, if they like what you're writing because you're confident in that, then they're going to buy your books because it's you writing it. It's no different than me as a publicist. I don't second guess what I'm going to do with the members of my team. I just do it. And I let them know, and I give them the rationale behind it. But it's still me doing it. I'm not trying to second guess what they do or don't do. It's the same thing.
Nice.
That's the first vein of it. And then secondly, if you are trying to look for a publicist, I don't know if you're going to ask this question, but I'll address it now.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
If you were looking to get a publicist, do some homework, ask some questions, get some testimonials. As an indie author, realize not every publicist out there is all about just getting money and not doing any work for it. There are some really good people out there. I think I'm one of them, but I'll let my members speak, my team speak for themselves on that. But yeah, just ask some tough questions and do your homework.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think sometimes it's a big scary author world out there, and I think sometimes authors aren't confident, and they hear people say you got a rapid release, you have to write in this genre, you have to do this, and there's all sorts of things they're told, and it gets overwhelming, and then it doesn't help your self-confidence. So yeah, asking questions. And again, I had almost I'm not going to bother about a publicist. And again, then I heard you talking about it. So I was enlightened a bit and heartened that there are some good publicists out there, which makes sense. There has to be, just like there's some good and bad authors.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not all about the money. I mean, I know that exposure, you're not getting the dividends back from that, but it's about getting the word out and building your brand. And you can't do that unless you've got someone in your corner helping you sometimes.
Right. And I know a lot of authors, agreed. And I know a lot of authors don't want to do anything but write their books. So you have to find a good publicist, a good marketer, a good editor, a good everything if all you want to do is write. And that ends up costing you time and money rather than you doing the work. So, Mickey, I remember from the other podcast, maybe you could share this. You had a really great story about how you started the business. It wasn't even something you were thinking of doing. Could you share that with everybody?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So I worked in the corporate world for about 8 years in the insurance and technology vein. I worked in Saskatchewan, actually, for credit unions, teaching lenders how to sell insurance coverage and setting up lending and banking systems. And within that, completely different world than this.
Yeah.
But within that, one of my coworkers wrote a book. Her name is Miranda O. And I used to be the special events manager for one of the chapter locations here in Canada, which is the big bookstore chain. And I set up special events. So I said to Miranda, I said, you've got this book out. Do you want me to try and get you some signings or help you in some way, shape, or form? Well, we went on an Alberta tour together, and we toured like 8 different cities, and it worked out to eight different stores and 8 different signings. And then she went back to Manitoba where she lives, and she did the exact same thing. And next thing you know, word got out, and I met some authors and started my own little business in March of 2016. And by August, I think I had like 35 people signed up for Creative Edge as clients. So that's how this all started. And then in building and starting the name and everything, my daughter, who's autistic, she actually picked the name for the company, Creative Edge. And she used the idea of puzzle pieces connecting authors together. Well, one of those puzzle pieces happens to be blue because of the autistic, like the autism logo, right? So those 2 pieces together, but she designed all of that. She selected the name and everything. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I love that. I have an autistic stepson, and it's
okay. Yeah.
And it's funny how people will underestimate. You just say they have autism and they get underestimated, like they are not smart, they can't think, and that. And it really, we know what triggers him and what he can and can't do. And I'm always one to push a little bit more. And even his mom said that there are things she didn't think he would do that he did with her. And now with both of us together, he's getting even further. So
no, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's really great. It's a good story. It's a good logo and good name. I love the name.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's good.
And
so that's how I got started. That's
and you are from Canada, and you do have some American authors. So you represent people all over. That doesn't really matter to you. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have Canadian authors. We have a number of U.S. authors. We've got authors in the U.K. I have an author in Australia. And with all that, we have the media connections worldwide as well in all those places to balance that out. So it's become international, and it's amazing.
So there's a go wide for the win argument right there, that you have
Yeah,
connections all over. You don't want to necessarily just be on Amazon if you're working with a publicist. Most bang for the buck, you take advantage of all your connections and all you would uh,
it's no
show.
different than social media as an author. I mean, Twitter and Facebook are fine, but TikTok's also, well, TikTok's the biggest right now. And then there's other things. So yeah, you have to spread yourself out wide to have success. That's my belief.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Hmm.
have you noticed, or has any of the like USA bestsellers, have they said, wow, I had a book that did okay, but now I'm working with you, the publicist, that I'm actually selling more books over the long term. Have you gotten any of that feedback from those authors?
Yeah, I have a couple of authors, Anne Charles, who is a USA Today bestseller, and she's very happy. She's been working with me for over 2 years.
And that's a
And
testament right there.
yeah, and I met her at the South Dakota Festival of Books, I believe 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember the date, but she's been with me for a while. And she feels that everything that I'm doing for her complements all the things that she's already doing. And that's just one aspect of it. We've also got an international bestseller. Her name is Catherine Hudson, and she became an international bestseller through our efforts together, actually.
Nice.
And just very, very well versed. She's got substantial books, and she's been on a number of different media vehicles, including Fox News, File 770, the Nerd Daily out of Australia, things like that.
Nice. Well, that
Yeah.
brought up a good question, two-parter. So, is there anything that you would advise authors not to do publicity wise? And is there some things that you do that maybe authors don't usually do or think of doing?
I think
Sorry, don't
that
mean to put you on the spot, but
no, I don't mind. It's a tough question, but I have no problem answering it. I think that what authors need to realize is just because you put money into Amazon ads or Facebook ads, that they're not always going to get the bang for the buck that they're expecting from that. Um, I mean, traditional media is also another forum, and a lot of authors who are having success, especially on TikTok, they don't look at that aspect. So they're missing a whole circle of different things, and they're only focusing on TikTok, which right now is the biggest media outlet out there for sure. But there's so many other things that they could be doing that they're not doing. And I just signed an author who is very prevalent on TikTok, who didn't realize this other part, this other world, but she does now because she's working with me, and it's been very, very well from that aspect. What was the second part of the question? Sorry,
uh,
Stephen.
things that they do that maybe they shouldn't, or things that they should be doing that they're not doing. But both sides.
I think and this might be controversial, but I think it's okay to put out. I think it's important to stay grounded and stay professional, especially on social media. I'm not a big fan of authors who put out a book every single month for the year. I believe that an author should be putting out 2, 3 books tops, and then marketing those 3 books and reaping the sales from that first and foremost. But I also am not a big fan of authors who essentially beg for reviews via social media, um, begging for reviews on Facebook or things like that. I think it's important to get reviews, but I think you can do it in a professional way rather than look desperate by blowing up your social media, asking everybody and their dog to review your book. That's
Right.
my opinion.
I personally agree with that. So do you find that just doing the standard things you do, that people get reviews naturally without having to focus on reviews?
I think they can if they leverage that. So I mean, I have a number of authors, and they don't blow up their social media requesting reviews, yet they get reviews. They get reviews from the efforts that I'm doing. They get reviews from their arc readers, their beta readers, and other envelopes. So it can be done, and it can be done professionally if it looks right. So,
And that sounds like everything you've said and everything I've heard everywhere. It's kind of a mindset. You have to think of it as a professional career or business, and you're doing it for the long term, not that one single book. You get the people that have one book and they go to every group on Facebook and say, "Hey, buy my book." I'm like, okay, but dude, this is a group of authors. Other authors don't want to buy your fantasy book. They're talking author
exactly.
stuff. You're in the wrong spot. People think authors, so I'm an author. They'll buy my, and that's not correct. So I can see how the same with reviews. They like you said, hey, please go review my book. Go review my book. But they're only focusing on Facebook, and that's all they're doing. And there's
Yeah,
a wider
exactly.
audience.
Well, and there's this stigma, about indie authors, and maybe I'm grouping everything together, and that's not really what I tend to like to do, but I will for this. Indie authors, a lot of indie authors, their dream is still to be traditionally published. Like that's what they want to do. They want to get an agent. They want to get on with Penguin and have that accolade, right? Well, part of that is acting like it then. So if you have an author who is mainstream, commercially viable, Stephen King type person, are are those individuals going to beg for reviews on Facebook? Are they going to put out things that maybe are less professional in on their social media changes? Likely not.
Right.
So why would you as an indie, if you're trying to strive to get there yourself, why would you do that? Because all it's going to do is create a bad taste with
Right.
media, with the traditional veins, with the indie authors who are maintaining professionalism and who have a brand in place. So now you've alienated all of that.
Right.
What's the purpose of that?
And
Really?
I think I see it again. It's for my mindset that I want to have a lot of books be published and feel confident. And I think when you start asking for reviews and then you don't get any, it defeats your own self confidence, and and then you get more desperate. So it's that vicious cycle. And I think it was Tony Robbins that always said, the self help guru guy always said,
Yeah,
if you want to be as successful as this person, then do what that person does. Simple.
exactly.
So,
Exactly. No, for sure. Absolutely.
of course,
So, yeah.
we can't all be Stephen King or J.K. Rowling, and I don't think everybody
No,
necessarily wants to be, because there's plenty of books and authors that are popular and make a good living without
they
having to
do,
be Stephen King and J.K. Rowling.
but they do it professionally. Like
Right.
they do it the right way, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite authors I've met recently, he wrote for like 20 years before he was able to quit his job and go full time. So, not
Well,
necessarily the hopeful message, but
no, and I mean, I represent authors who write 2 books or 3 books a year, and we're actively promoting those books. They write other books, but we don't actively promote them, or they're doing other things, like they're doing cover design, or they're ghostwriting, or they're doing editing to help with that income. So
right.
it's all it all comes together.
Right. All right. Well, Mickey, I again appreciate your time getting on and talking to us. Is there anything that maybe you wanted to say that I forgot to ask or didn't ask?
No, I just want to give the premise that Creative Edge is a forum to help build authors' brands out. We represent traditional authors, we represent indie authors, we represent authors in virtually every genre, including nonfiction, and we like to think outside the box and just build our business up and build our teams build us up. It's a community.
Yeah. Nice. I love that. Great.
Yeah.
And uh, there are multiple authors I've already talked to and interviewed have been on the podcast that you've sent my way, and they've been great interviews, great books, great talking to them. So anybody else listening, if you're not working with Mickey, at least consider it. That's why I brought him on.
No, thanks. I mean, you could look at the client base on my website as well, www.creative-edge.services. But I think our team speaks for itself. So,
and I'll put a link in the show notes, point everybody to your service. And hopefully we'll go get a logo put up here. We'll test my video skills. I will send that to you
today as well, along with the link, for sure.
Cool. Great. All right, Mickey, thank you for taking some time. I appreciate talking to you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.